Welcome to Wisdom Exchange TV. My name is Suzanne F Stevens, Chief Edge Optimizer for the Ignite Excellence Group of Initiatives. One of our initiatives is the Ignite Excellence Foundation, which invests, inspires, and develops future African women leaders. With that spirit, we produce Wisdom Exchange TV, where we interview leading ladies and pioneers and trailblazers and leaders of many in politics, philanthropy, education, and business. Today we're in South Africa, in Durban, with a wonderful leading lady in philanthropy and business. Marsha Gabriel is founder and president of the CSI Business Congress, an award-winning organization specializing in people development, community development, and business development. She is also a CSI practitioner and designs policies in favor of transformation, namely the CSI Summit, mainstreaming gender into trade and development, business action against AIDS. Marsha travels extensively, developing leaders and empowering people through conferences, seminars, and workshops. Some of her achievements: she's received 4 community awards from 2004 to 2006, received the Standard Bank Women of the Year in 2008, top 10 United Nations finalists in 2010. Through her special entrepreneurial initiatives, she's impacted thousands, from providing food hampers, clothing drives, to career guidance. Now, you've achieved many successes, and not to take away from any of them, but I'd like to focus on the CSI mandate. Firstly, what was the catalyst to start the CSI Business Congress?
Firstly, thank you, Suzanne, and welcome to Durban. It's a pleasure to have you. The catalyst or the objective for starting the CSI Business Congress is basically coming from the position that I've been in my previous career. I've identified a people that was more impoverished in their minds than they were in their bodies. And due to that, I put in policies and projects in place to monetize it and add value in this. So therefore, you would find the CSI Business Congress, who are leaders in research, advocacy, and capacity building to achieve our objectives.
The CSI Congress came at a probably, I'm guessing, maybe a low point in your career.
Absolutely.
Can you just give us a little bit of context so we understand where this great initiative actually blossomed from?
In 1999, I worked for the South African Post Office, and I was in the top of my game. And due to an unfortunate experience where I was paralyzed head down and rushed to have an emergency operation or surgery on my spine, during my period of recovery, because I was proven unfit for the open labor market, I've understood the disabilities of people at that time in my life and decided that I'm going to go beyond the boundaries of my disability. And through the period of my recovery, I began to write down mandates. I began to have thoughts and ideas because I found myself in the shoe of somebody that is disabled. So it actually stemmed from that lowest point in my life. And when you do reach a point where you think it's enough, you always remember the point that you started, and it gives you the energy to actually go further.
Absolutely. Now, you were paralyzed head down, did you?
Well, for the past 10 years, I had major treatment on my spine, from a biokineticist to a physiotherapist to a neurosurgeon, chiropractor. It is a chronic situation that you've just got to manage. When you do something with passion that gives you the energy, you definitely trump beyond the boundaries of your disability.
Now, I was particularly interested in the CSI Congress provides a moral order and confronts specifics that could destroy the integrity of social projects and eradicate systems in which the exploitation of resources leads to the poverty of the country. Can you explain how it provides moral order?
From the line of my work, I've understood at this current stage we have 86,000 non-profit organizations in South Africa. And what we've come to understand, what I've come to understand, is that funding has been given sometimes funding has been given from an emotional level rather than a strategic level. And what leads to the poverty of the country is also a lack of knowledge. Therefore, that until structures are put in place in terms of investment and proper spending, proper spending model is in place, we will not achieve our objectives. I think that one of the main contribution towards the poverty of the country is also the absence of a productive and rewarding collaboration. One of the other important points is greed, corruption, lack of knowledge, improper framework. These are all stuff that actually leads to the poverty of our country.
Now, I've had the pleasure of visiting 14 countries in Africa, and I'm pretty passionate about this subject as you are, because I've been doing a lot of reading on the fact that are you helping or are you hurting?
Sure.
So what are some of your thoughts on all these social programs that are in place? Are they helping or are they hurting? And if they're hurting, how can they be helping?
Personally, I have 102 organizations on my database that are basically non-profit organizations, either orphanage buildings or old age homes. What I've understood, and I work around the model, is when I do go in, I would probably give them, like the good proverb that says, give them a fish. And probably through my stay and connection and collaboration with these organizations, I will shift their mindset and then teach them how to fish. I further continue my stay with the organization, and then after, once I've given them the fish, taught them how to fish, I will now get them and teach them how to buy the pond. In other words, first I've provided what you have need of. Then I've taught you how to take care and provide for that need. Then I taught you how to distribute and add value to others that are in need.
Now, do you find that a lot of the social programs operate in the same way?
No, absolutely not.
How do you see them operating?
Most of them are dependent on funding simply because they lack the knowledge. Remember, this is Africa. Most of our organizations have started not because they wanted to generate an income, but the true birthing of non-profit organizations has started due to diseases or through unemployment or through the lack of finance, and parents dying early and leaving their children on streets, and then a good Samaritan comes along and take these children under her care, and then she starts asking people, then she moves on asking corporate, then she moves further and she starts asking government. Remember, she started from the heart of her mother. Now we have to go in and teach her business skills so that she becomes sustainable for life.
And to your point, starting from the heart, I think that's a really pure case and very optimistic case.
Sure.
I want to look at the other side of that for a moment, though. The first woman we interviewed on Wisdom Exchange TV is Lois Shaw. Mm-hmm. And she's a Canadian-American that has been living in Nairobi for 25 years. Sort of a long story of her background, but she's writing a document called Killing with Kindness. Uh-huh. And you've suggested a lot of people are giving from their heart. And a lot of times people give because they want to feel good, or their ego has got them doing that. Now, the intention may be good, but the execution and the impact may actually perpetuate a bad situation. Mm-hmm. Meaning, all of a sudden, I always know I'm going to get support from this institution, so I don't need to do it myself. Do you see that sort of philosophy being embedded in South Africa, that people are starting to rely on the systems rather than creating their own destiny?
Yes, absolutely. I have, with most of the organizations that I have worked with, they tend to depend on funding, and therefore we go in and educate them. My most recent project where we have, it's called the Formalizing Informal Trade, where we brought in 25 street traders, 25 crafters that would basically from the gift will try to weave baskets and make jewelry and really do not have the markets for it. Yes, they have a God-given ability and gift to produce these products, but they do not have the market. So what the CSI Congress did was we created the markets in July. We created a huge exhibition right here at the Gateway, and we did not isolate them. Remember, we're teaching them, or we're creating markets so that when they begin to do well in their products and their business, that enables employment. That's impacting others. That's adding more value. Then we teach them what it is to give back to communities. We educate them. We give them business education. We provide them with the markets. And we had an exhibition, but in the same token of having an exhibition for the crafters, we did not isolate them with their tribe. But what we did was we brought in at least 15 of the leading corporates in South Africa. That would include the Barlow Worlds, the Mercedes-Benz, the NMIs, the different banking divisions, some of the government division, so that they're not feeling isolated and left within their tribe, but they have the opportunity to mingle with South Africa's leading corporate. And that gave them zest for life. That gave them energy. That enabled them to go beyond their edge. That enabled them to see a different world. That also enabled them to see a demand for what they're doing. And in the process right now, creating markets for 25 street traders, giving them a name. Just looking at their name on that exhibition site, wowed them. Gave them such a sense of positivity, gave them such a sense of well-being. They've been identified now. I am a businessman, or I am a businesswoman, and I didn't know this about myself. So it energized their mentality. It energized their life. I taught them what it is to dress well, dress like a businesswoman. Change your this will allow you to change your appeal to people, to life. Now we're teaching them customer service, how to win your customer and keep a customer, how to move beyond your paradigms of limitation.
So with that growth, now have you seen some of those businesses, some, all, one or two, develop and start increasing their businesses?
Absolutely. Yes, we did. From the last exhibition, I would go on to about 79%.
Now, how have they gone about increasing their business, though?
We've informed them of the different markets that they could target, not via an exhibition, via corporate gifts. Also create a store. We've given them 5 major points as to how to target certain markets that will allow their products to actually sell.
Sort of social entrepreneurs or individuals that create NGOs. What sort of advice can you give to them to make sure that when you're going to set something up with the spirit of giving back to your community or have a positive impact, what are some of the things that they should consider in order to make sure that is sustainable?
They've got to be selfless, and then they've got to create a project that is sustainable. In other words, I've always said this, that you can be passionate about what you do, but passion does not pay the bills. So personally, I had to develop 3 projects that are income generating and are also sustainable, and in the same token that is very attractive to corporate and government, because we do believe that government in and of itself cannot make all the change in our country. And they need corporates. They need people that are on the field, that understand the heartbeat. Initially, the thing that got me going and allowed me to start something called the CSI Business Congress is because I've identified a people that was just not impoverished in their bodies, but impoverished in their minds. And due to that, we saw people with great talent hijacked by poverty. So we would go in and begin to change their mindset in terms of that. So your project has to be income generating, your project has to be sustainable, and and your project has to affect the people that you've created the projects for.
How receptive really do you think those people are for the help? Like, do you do anything in your systems to say, this person may have a business, but you know what, they really don't want to grow it. They're pretty content where they are. And then there's the ones that do have the drive and are thirsty for that knowledge. Do you do anything to decipher between those two individuals?
I find the one that that feels stifled in their own business, and to the onlooker, they might look like, well, you do not want to go any further. That is my Shankar. That is the person I choose to work with, and go beyond beyond his business or her business, and find out how did she start the business, what motivated her to start the business, and then you begin to identify the root cause and you work with that. But you need people with staying power. A philanthropist has to have staying power. He or she cannot get tired of what he or she is doing. She has to have staying power. If you are, if you are very concerned about the well-being of others, then you should stay until that situation is really, really rectified and you can see success in whatever you're doing.
We do it too with the Ignite Excellence Foundation, is we will not give money for living expenses.
Sure.
Only for education.
Sure.
Tertiary education is where, because we're creating women leaders. But I get asked all the time, but I can't live. And I said, well, that's part of leadership. You have to solve part of the problem. I'm going to sort of help you solve this part. You need to solve this part.
Absolutely.
And together, we'll help get you to the next level.
Absolutely.
But we're not going to be the only one who's completely invested in this. So, and that's why I asked you that question, because a lot of times people, if people are going to keep giving, then people will keep taking.
Absolutely. Well, we live by the statement in my restaurant is, my duty is to provide you with a job. That's my duty, is to provide you with a position. What you make of it is up to you. You can choose to take care of your job. You can choose to go up the ladder. You can choose to go the extra mile that will not go, past us, and that enables you to be promoted within the company. So when each person, I live also by the statements, if you don't have a job, create one. So that also makes you active and not just dependent. The same thing, the same model we've worked with the 102 organizations that's in our database, where we go into the orphanages and the old age homes and identify the heads of these organizations and change their mentality and cause a shift to take change in their thinking capacity, where you are doing this, but there's more to life than just maintenance. This is how you would institute growth in your organization. This is what you can do, and this is what you shouldn't do.
You also mentioned that there are techniques that are most suitable for building sustainable systems towards excellence, and to chart concrete directions for future research that will add value to the sustainable corporate social development. What are those systems that you employ?
It should be more on the evaluating and implementing of projects in order to achieve a sustainable outcome. It's also personally with the CSI Business Congress, in order to strengthen our functionality and capacity to do what we've asked to, or what we've mandated to do, was to strengthen a cross-border partnership. This also creates to the sustainability of the company and the various projects that we engage in.
Why do you believe these systems will produce the best results in measuring freedom? And you use that word of measuring freedom, which I'm also very intrigued with. What does that mean, and how do those systems help measure that freedom?
As I've said, is that most people and talent have been hijacked by poverty, locked within the heartbeat of our projects, beyond the paradigm of creating an income. There's so much to it is identifying the root cause of certain initiatives, certain business initiatives, certain development initiatives, building capacity within these organizations. I always go back to the root. Remember, I had to identify the root cause for the foundation of the CSI Congress. Where did it stem from? How did it stem? What brought about this? And if we can apply the same model with various organizations and people that we work with, then from that point we are able to measure freedom. I would say with the common saying that's in our country at this time is that we have freedom of speech. And while we have freedom of speech, it also gets us into a lot of trouble. So the same thing applies with organizations. While we emphasize, freedom in what they do, they also have to put down, a lot of locks in their operating as to how to achieve this freedom. You achieve it being legal and strong. You achieve it with moral integrity. And if you can have all these wonderful characteristics that should not just be documented down, but actually, the manifestation of it, you can genuinely measure freedom through those processes.
Which sort of leads to, what do you see as the biggest challenge in South Africa, and what do you see as the best way to combat that challenge?
Well, one of our main challenges in South Africa is crime, but I do believe that systems are being put in place, and you've just got to be highly aware and work with the system. Don't dodge the system, work with the system, and we will finally achieve the objective.
Now, how does CSI, does it address that issue in any capacity?
No, we don't. Personally, from my company, no, we don't. We don't.
Yet, perhaps indirectly.
Indirectly, yes. Where we say to a corporate, remember, corporate social investment and corporate social responsibility is beyond communicating your giving through glossy magazines and brochures. It is about doing well or doing good while doing well. And in the process, you remove unemployment, you remove children, from street corners, from robot stops. And in the process, yes, I would do say that we do indirectly impact the crime in our country, where we keep youths, we keep women, we also keep men very occupied in what we're doing. So can I retract and say, does CSI contribute? Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember being approached on the street one day, somebody asking for money. He says, if you give it to me, I won't be stealing. And I went, those are not the two options.
No.
There's other options out there, and changing that mentality is as well. And that's by providing opportunities for people,
Sure.
they can sustain their families, so they don't, to your point, raise children that look elsewhere. As I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, looking at your bio, it is quite diverse, and I understand now that you're doing a lot of the speaking and the training for yourself at the Congress as well with other partners. Now, how does each initiative, including the restaurant, how does it all complement each other?
Because the CSI Congress is a non-profit organization, with most of the key staff in the CSI Congress, especially those that are employed during a project, we do not have a particular office that we can operate from. So what we do is we resolve around the home model office, where we beat the rental, the lights, the water, and obviously for all the staff that we employ, most of us work out of our briefcase. Most of us, for me personally, I use my restaurant as my office as well to advocate some of the mandates in the CSI Congress. That helps us with our meetings. They can come to a very a good setup to do a meeting. We meet with government at the restaurant. We meet with corporate at the restaurant, because basically the restaurant itself pays for those meetings. We don't have to source out income to actually pay for them. Our offices are being run from here. I have another director, the Summit director, who I've created a home model office for. A telephone gets paid, but we beat the rising cost of rentals. Does that work for us at this stage for 10 years? Absolutely.
To that, I don't know if I missed this, but CSI, the projects are sustainable, but it doesn't actually provide you a financial income.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. So is the restaurant also your income?
Absolutely.
Now, would you recommend that sort of approach to others that are trying to give back to society in some way, but also have an income generating somewhere where you can make your income so you're not reliant completely on funding?
Sure. I'm always, I'm a believer of having multiple streams of income. So that's the reason we educate organizations to have a business mindset. And what we've, with the last project that I've done, we've brought in Mr. Price. And I've personally approached the head of the CSI division. I said, what do you do with all your broken jewelry? What do you do with it? And normally they would dump it. And I asked him, can you kindly give it to us? So we had tons, more than 150,000 rands worth of broken jewelry. And I would source this out to various organizations and teach them, provide them with the different skills and, appliances to actually fix these jewelry. And now I taught them, go out and start selling it. So that brought an income. And from that, they have developed various other business initiatives, but I've also allowed them to come out of being sustained by their organization and create multiple streams of income for themselves personally, because at the end of the day, I complement my husband's income at home. He might be the breadwinner, but we still, I still bring an income at home. And to do what I'm doing, it's high cost factor. There's flight fees, there's office fees, and I have to have multiple streams of income that can sustain the project.
Exactly what you're talking about, which I think should be the new model.
Sure.
I really do. I think that if you're going to give back, the reality is corporations, sure, they want to be associated with certain things, but corporations often want to just fix what is broken.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to fix, they don't want to change behavior at the top so something doesn't get broken.
Sure.
So people like yourself, and I'd like to include me in that, and my husband, is when we're saying, okay, finance here, and then give over here, we can sustain that, and we also can control what we want to do.
Absolutely.
You have had such a big impact. What has been the most significant impact you feel you've made in your career and life to date?
I think the last project that we've just jumped with is creating the markets for informal traders.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that was phenomenal. We've achieved a 79% growth rate and saw people's lives change due to the unemployment. As I've mentioned before, you don't have a job, create one. Mm-hmm. So if they have a skill and they have a gift and they have a business, let's grow that, because that in turn creates employment for other people. So that has to be the highlight of the last 10 years in the CSI Congress.
Now, you've also done work by giving hampers and clothing.
Yes.
Can you just tell us a little bit about that as well?
It was about 8 to 9 years ago. I was approached, remember, coming from the marketing division of the South African Post Office. People were very aware of some of my skills. And I was approached to PR an event in KwaZulu-Natal put together by Tiger Brands and the Department of Social Development and an events company called 3C Africa. And they wanted me to PR the entire Unite Against Hunger in KwaZulu-Natal. And they was going to actually pay me a fantastic income. But at that time, I have founded the CSI Business Congress, and I asked them not to pay me there, but in turn, for that worth and more, give products to the CSI Congress, because we can now distribute these products to the orphanages and old age homes. We were even doing prison babies and hospitals. we were basically distributing our foods to them. So that's how we started with our food distribution, and we grew. We've achieved phenomenal results, which stats were provided with to you. But basically, it was bringing government on board and bringing the Tiger brands, the Nestle's, the Checkers, the Spas, and thereafter, when you begin to do that, you begin to grow and see other opportunities and jump it. Like if you look at the Woolworths will not keep certain foods on their shelves past the due date, yet from a nutritional perspective it still have 2 days further than the due date. So instead of dumping that, we got into their database and we would come in and load all their foods, and that was now adding value to orphanages. So that is how the food distribution program actually started. And then we started doing nutritions in school, and because children would come very hungry to school, so we would get various companies that would provide milk and provide mealie meal, so that we could create a porridge for the children at school. So that is basically how they started. From a job given as a PR, we converted them to not give me a salary, rather give the products into the CSI Congress, and we built the food distribution project from that level.
In listening to you, something else is glaring, and you need to know business. You need to know how business works in order to give, in a lot of cases. Sure. Is knowing the opportunities and having the confidence to approach those opportunities.
Oh, yes.
So there's a lot of skill that is required to give. Why are you doing all this?
If we go back 10 years ago and understand, my disability, I had to show people that even though you have had an unfortunate circumstance in your life, there is life beyond disability. There is life beyond failure. There is life beyond your situation. And when we begin, coming back to the food distribution, remember, to distribute food to the value of 500,000 rands per month, or distribute food to 102 organizations, there are still cost factors in getting that food delivered to these organizations. I mean, something like, there were times where we had to incur cost of about 100,000 rands a month in terms of trucks, in terms of petrol, diesel, and fuel, in terms of salaries for warehouse and rental for warehouse and distributors that would do our projects. And I had to create a marketing initiative outside of that, where I would move into promotions. And personally, to sustain that project, I had to create a business initiative where I gave away an A-class Merc. I gave away a Mercedes-Benz even before I drove one. I gave away 3 cars every year, just so that I would put that throughout South Africa and all the strategic malls from Johannesburg to Cape Town to Durban. Place those vehicles and raffle those vehicles. In other words, we say to the public, stand a chance to win a vehicle. And in the process of you paying 10 rands to enter the competition, you are adding value to lives. And at the end of the competition, when we do draw, the best part to the Congress and the most rewarding part to the Congress, even in drawing out the winner for these cars, we found that each winner was, each winner was so desperate to come out of his or her financial situation that winning just created a platform for them to soar and come out of their difficulties. So yes, even through our marketing initiatives in terms of giving away vehicles to raise funds to sustain the food distribution project, we've added value.
So it's all a system.
Absolutely.
So if you're doing something like this, and that's really coming across, is everything has a system.
Sure.
You just don't give the money. You need to find where you're going to get that money
Yes.
from, and make sure that you're able to continue to raise that money to help the next phase,
Sure.
which helps the next phase, which helps the next phase. So what skills do you think you need to have to execute something like that?
Suzanne, personally, to date, we have not got funding from government. We don't depend and rely on their funding. Do we need the funding? Absolutely. But we will not be suppressed or oppressed by certain of the criteria in terms of funding. In most cases, we do not qualify for funding because of the model of our projects. So you've got to have a strong marketing background. You've got to have, with marketing comes your PR and your advertising skills. You've got to be a good speaker. You've got to be a good negotiator. You've got to have the ability to draft out a project that will take you years on and is sustainable in the process. So while we have all the very, very heart-rending initiatives of the CSI Congress, we also have a very strong marketing division that I also head and draft projects. We have 3 major projects that are income generating that can support and sustain all the other projects or the food distribution, the orphanage maintenance, the orphanage renovation as well. That is the CSI Business Congress, which is the CSI Summit. Summit is bringing corporate and government together. The mission is simple, and that is to get government and corporate to collaborate, see what we're doing, and begin to add value as partners. So 1 is the CSI Summit, 2 is mainstreaming gender into trade, and 3 is the business action against AIDS. Those are all income generating projects that sustain the other projects of the CSI Congress.
Looking a little more at you as a person, if there was one thing that you could attribute your success to, what would it be?
You've got to be fearless in your exploits and seemingly go over the edge.
I like that for a number of reasons. Let's take that actually and ask the question now, our edginess segment that I was referring to earlier.
Sure.
Which is something that you've had to do that pushes the edge of your comfort zone. But if you didn't do it, you would not have achieved the success you have to date.
I had to go beyond the boundaries of my disability. Before I taught, before I expected anybody to do anything, I had to first model out everything that I would expect of others to do. And that is that there is life beyond your disability. There is life beyond your frustration. There is life beyond your inability. Did I go beyond the edge in my disability? Absolutely. So there's literally no excuse for others that have been in the same situation.
Someone's watching and they're looking at you. I wouldn't think you're disabled now. Are you?
No, but I'm still maintained, or I'm still under the medical, maintenance of a neurosurgeon, a physiotherapist, a biokinetist, and a chiropractor.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Remember, it's a chronic situation.
Yeah.
You just learn how to live in your body. You learn how to maintain it. You do. Recently, I was traveling to the States, and I had a major attack while I was on the flight. They teach you that, every hour, get up, move your body, move your leg. And 10 years later, I found I'm sitting on the plane, and I could not move my legs. And I said, no, not again, not again. And I immediately I've carried my medication all the time, took my medication, always carry a heat pillow, got a flight attendant to heat it up, placed that on my back, and it was good to go again. So you learn to live in your body and maintain it.
To date, what would be the most rewarding aspect of your career and the whole career beyond, not just CSI, but your entire career?
To do what I do, I've got to have the strong support of my family. And that has been my greatest success, is having the support of my children and my husband. And that allows me to go beyond the edge. That allows me to fly. That allows me to do things I have not done before. They're basically the wind beneath my wings. And their support, their admiration, their, I would say the respect and the honor that comes from both my daughters and my husband helps me to go further than most people would expect me to. So yes, it is the strong support of my family. I think that is the greatest success to date.
What would you say has been the most significant decision you've made in your career?
I've made so many decisions. I think one of the decisions that I had to make is I had to model out truth before I achieved truth. And one of the successes I think, or the significant success that I've also achieved, is that when I developed my personal business called The Restaurant, I've entered into partnership. Remember that this is not my heartbeat. This is not my industry. This is not what I was called to do. I mean, a restaurant, you gotta be kidding. So it was my daughter's heartbeat. I've always wanted them to have a degree in education to fall back on, but this was her heartbeat, is to own a restaurant. So when we did come in, and basically I just came in and I've set up the project for her, and she's fully operational. She, yet again, I come in, I try and help with the marketing, but this is her heartbeat. And I think also one of the significant, one of the rewarding thing as a mom is that you could still work with your daughter, and she, working together, you're going to hit, some good moments, some bad moments, but even through your bad moments, they still know the line between mom and partner. And for me, that if I've achieved that, to me that is success.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge to overcome to get to this point?
I had to just get people to believe in what I'm doing. And when I did get people to believe in what I'm doing, it's not always easy. But when I've got people to believe in what I'm doing, the road became easy to travel on.
So how did you get people to believe in what you were doing?
By constantly sending them out information of what we do. This is who we are impacting. This is what we would give you in return. And let's join forces. As I said, in order to be sustainable, we're still looking for a cooperative, a productive, and a very significant collaboration between government, corporate, people like you and I, in order to take this further.
Is there anything you would do differently in the pursuit of your success?
Yes, continue to work as hard as I am. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. I would love to develop more business from the restaurant perspective, where I am developing something called an express from the restaurant, and bringing people that have the ability. Doesn't necessarily have to, it can also be a disadvantaged person, where I give them an opportunity to work, bring them in, give them 10% of the entire shares, and allow them to create a platform and allow them to work from there. So developing more businesses, I'd love to do that.
How would you define leadership?
Leading by example, doing what you expect of others to do. Having a top-down approach means first coming to understand what you're doing and expecting what you expect of your staff.
What sort of leadership skills or advice would you provide to other leaders that lead a project or an initiative?
Embrace responsibility and work hard.
What's next for you?
Identify a collaboration that can withstand every obstacle, and together create a platform, create an opportunity, create projects that can really add value cross borders, within my country, internationally. The road's endless.
So if there was one thing that you could do that you haven't done, and the world's your oyster, this is beyond your career, what would you love to still do?
I'd love to meet two people. And that would be Oprah and Mr. Mandela. I've not had the opportunity. I'd love to do that.
Now your daughters are 24 In their 20s?
Yes.
Let's say the youngest one is 10 years old today. What words of wisdom would you like to give to her?
Become a prototype. Believe in yourself before you get others to believe in something that you do. Always lead by example. It's always better to give more than you receive. Always lead a life that is full of integrity, compassion, respect. Always greet. Mannerism should be the key component in your characteristic. Always do good.
Now, what do you wish you were told at 10 years old?
I had a mom that could not tell me what I would have told my daughters. But I had a mom that might have not lived it out in words, but lived it out practically. And I get emotional when I do say these things, because I saw a mom that knows what it is to keep 2 jobs, to carry, we didn't have a car, to carry at least 5 bags on each arm, so that she could buy groceries for the entire week and bring up her children.
What are your words of wisdom to African women?
Some are born great, some are great, some become great. You might not have been born great, you might not be great, but you have the ability to become great. And all the best in your achievements.
Very well said. Very well said. Wonderful, wonderful interview. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Suzanne F Stevens, and I co-produce Wisdom Exchange TV alongside my husband, Michael K. Ginrick. We're traveling all over Africa, interviewing women just like Marsha. So if you know women we should interview, please email us at info@wisdomexchangetv.com. Also, join us on Facebook under Wisdom Exchange TV and make comments on the site after each interview. We want to hear your words of wisdom. And lastly, I want to leave you with mine. We talked a lot about social responsibility, and I do believe that if you're going to give back, create a mechanism that can help you do that so you become self-sustainable, so you control the destiny, but more importantly, the impact you make on people is sustainable. Thank you for joining us.